Please enjoy this feature presentation of the Crooked River Radio Network. This program may contain adult content and is intended for mature audiences only.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The arguments begin now.
I got to figure out where my Zoom went. We got no Zoom. But we'll fix that. I think. Are you there, Dale?
Sure am.
Hey, there we are. Well, now we got Zoom. We're zooming away. Well, welcome everybody to The Art of Argument. We'll be starting here in just a minute. Once, I can blame this on Dale, and we can argue about this for a few minutes. This is all your fault, Dale.
Nope.
Yeah.
Mr. Technology over there doesn't have his shit together.
Blow me. What's happening, Dale? Haven't seen you in a couple weeks. We are getting here. Let's get me set up here. I've had is that right? No, that's not going to be right. I was better off that now. Too far. Yeah, you're right. I got to get my shit together. That'll be the day. I was on. No, that's too damn far that way.
I thought you had that thing on remote.
That's the other camera.
Oh, the other camera. Well, if you're going to use that, shouldn't you have that on the one that you actually use? When you're
not for this show. What I'm doing with this show is.
Oh, this one ain't as cool, so you don't get the cool camera. Is that what you're saying?
I don't have it set up that way.
Oh. I don't even deserve the good camera.
Oh, come on.
Ain't that some bull? Now we can argue. All right.
Yeah. The first thing I think we should talk about, I'm going to throw you a real curveball. I think we talked about this last night, but I'm going to throw you a curveball here. Let's argue about why you shouldn't keep a track of your ham license expiration and get the and renew your ham license.
Well, what had happened was, that's the funny thing. I kept track of it. I have looked at it several times. I even talked to Justine about it probably a week and a half prior to it expiring. And she even reminded me a couple times, hey, Dale, don't forget, because it'd be like a Sunday night and she knew, I was off on Monday. So it was, hey, don't forget, you need to update that license. And then I'd get goofing off, doing something else. And just by the time I got around to doing it, FCC phone lines were closed. So I'm trying to do it online. And of course, that we did discuss, that's a waste of time. They have this wonderful website for you to be able to just update at the click of a button, but it just doesn't work.
Yeah, I will agree with you on that. at the end of that. That site has a lot to be desired. I don't really want to get into the first topic quite yet, but I think one of the main things we're going to talk about today is going to be the Kent State, as a comparison of what's going on with these student protesters today and what was going on back on May 4th of 1970. I lived through that part of that. I saw the stuff that happened. I have my own very vivid memories of this thing, and I also have some pretty valid or vivid opinions. I realize that you weren't there around back then, but that still doesn't mean we can't argue about it. I take the side of the student protesters, to be honest about it.
Well, then we're gonna have some fun.
And you can have the side of the National Guard or whatever. Are we ready for this? First of all, the National Guard. I mean, if you go back to that era of time, you had a war that was Vietnam that was senseless. There was no reason for us to be over there except for an agreement by past generations in order to to keep democracy in Vietnam, which there was no real issue to keep us there because there was no oil or any natural resources that we could have used or anything like that. It was all just kind of brush and bush and crap. Well, if you got drafted to go to Vietnam, it was almost like a death sentence because you had a pretty decent chance of getting shot and killed if you looked into one of the service things as far as supplying food or flying stuff or something like that. You lucked out, but there was too many kids in the field that were shot and killed because of that war. I was in 1966. I think I was 12, or 68. I was 12. So from the time I was about 10 to the time that Nixon left office and all that crap ended, it was about 4 years of nonsense, killing and protesting and everything like that. Some of the best music that ever came out were actually against the war. You had Woodstock. Woodstock was put on to demonstrate against the war, and you had millions of people show up to that thing. It was a protest. I'm thinking about 68, 69, 70 in there was when the large part of the protesting was going on. You had major campuses that were being protested more and more every day. You had some pretty vigilant or violent kids that were protesting. And when you come down to Kent State, about 2 weeks before the shooting, the ROTC burnt down to the ground because of these student protesters went in there and burned it. They were, it was ROTC was a reserve officer training facility that they had there, and the kids didn't want it on their campus, which to me was a no-brainer.
Well, okay, fine. I'll give you that. Maybe that's a no-brainer. But burning down the ROTC building is not a protest. That's called arson. Well, what?
It's arson in the way.
There's protesting. I'm all for it. If you disagree with something and you want to speak your mind and have your ideas be heard, that is what the First Amendment is for. That's why it was created. But throwing rocks through windows, throwing rocks at people, burning down buildings, we call that a riot. And on January 6th, we call that an insurrection. And none of that kind of stuff was actually happening. Well, you got some windows broken and whatnot.
Yeah, you had windows broken.
Buildings down, but that's an insurrection. But at Kent State, it's peaceful protest? I don't think so.
The whole thing comes down to, in my eyes anyway, you had, for the most part, peaceful protesting. There was pictures of women, some of the women going up to the National Guard before all this happened and putting flowers in the barrels of their guns. And I've seen more than one of those pictures. So for the most part, it was peaceful. All right, then you start the riot. And my mother always took the side that you're going to get, that you've got. The National Guard had a right to shoot those people and kill them because they were having rocks thrown at them. Now, what do we set for a guideline here?
Now, see, that's where we're going to get. Okay, you have, I guess the night before seemed to be fairly chill, but I think it was May 1st, May 2nd. Well, the protest started on May 1st.
Yeah.
Then on May 2nd, the guys started to get some people gathering in downtown Kent. Okay. And they decided that they were going to close down the bars and everything like that, and just shut down downtown. Now,
yeah, I remember that happening.
Here's your main problem. Okay, if you look at all these protests, a lot of people are there protesting and trying to speak out for what they believe. But you always have these bad apples in a crowd, and you have people that come from elsewhere to attempt to cause the problems. So now you have a group of, hey, come on, this is college. You got a group of drunk people. You just cut them off. Oh, shit, what the hell else are we going to do? Let's go to Kent State and let's go protest with these other people. So now you're starting to bring the bad people into the crowd. They're already downtown peacefully protesting by busting up windows of businesses that have nothing to do with the Vietnam War, have nothing to do with what they're trying to speak about, but hey, let's go bust the windows of the barbershop. That'd be a great thing to do. Ha ha ha. Now, National Guard.
Let me stop you right there for a second.
Okay.
All right. Say that this wasn't at Kent State, or in Kent, as you're talking. Well, along those same times, you also had the Huff riots. You had the I can't think of the name of the place out there in California that had riots. There was, and to me, to be honest about it, I couldn't see myself throwing rocks through a window to protest. That's not. I think to me that's shitting in your own pot, sitting in your own crap. You burn a place down. You make it unlivable for somebody to be there. You're destroying that. You've destroyed that business. They're going to probably leave, and that's going to ruin your neighborhood. Now, fortunately for Kent, that didn't happen with them, but it very well could have. Well, and probably did for several years after that, after the shootings. We'll get to the shootings here in a minute.
Well, see, too. And also, it's like I even left myself a note of this so that I could bring it up. But back when Justine and I were first married, actually probably even before we were married, there was a corner bar by where we lived, and we used to go down there at night. That's where we played darts, and I did pool league and whatnot. It was a little, everybody knew everybody. It was like family in there. Okay. We policed our own. Riffraff came in from off the street. We didn't know who they were, and they started acting out. We kindly took them out the back door and showed them the exit. Now, of course, we weren't getting violent and beating up nobody. Not that it didn't come to that once in a while, but we showed them the way out. We didn't allow that. Now, so when you're doing a protest or whatnot, you have to police your own. Now, I know when you got 2,000 people there, it's not that easy.
You did not have that back in 1970.
Get the bad people away from you so they're not making you look like an asshole.
You didn't have that back
more, we might not have all this bullshit going on.
You didn't have that back in 1970. You had radical groups that were coming into that.
It's the same thing.
Into the most of the colleges. You had that.
You had the college students.
You had the black. You had
and
Black
then you got
Panthers.
Activists coming in and stirring the pot.
You had Black Panthers on those sites.
Exactly. You needed to keep those people.
And that's what the government.
The radicals, you needed to kind of keep them out.
That's what the government at that time thought they were doing, but it didn't work. Now let's take the next step of this. We're already talking about, you don't piss in your own oatmeal by burning down your buildings and stuff like that. I know personally, and I hate to admit this, but back in that time, I knew a guy that went to prison for 6 years for taking a tomahawk and chopping up fire hoses during the time that the ROTC building was burning down. I knew him really well.
All right. So good. Then I can understand that, because you have to remember here, we got all this going on in 1970, and I wasn't even close to being a brown stain on a mattress yet. I wasn't born until 72. So I'm basing my opinion on what I'm reading and trying to use reputable sources and hoping that what I'm reading is actually fairly accurate. And what I did read was there were other protesters trying to stop the firefighters from putting out the fire. Now, once again,
that's exactly true.
Protest. That's not protest. That's putting lives in danger. That is, once again, you have and it's not a thin line. It's not a fine line. There is protesting and there is breaking the law. If you are breaking the law, then guess what? That's why we have laws.
Even today, you've got protesters that will break the law just to protest. That's a signature of their protest. But I don't want to go there right yet. We got a couple other points to make here.
All right.
The next thing that I have in question, and it was James A. Rhodes was the governor, and he approved the National Guard to come into Kent State. Rhodes was what they called the road governor. You were supposed to have the best roads of any state in Ohio, which was
any state in Ohio
or any state.
The argument.
Any state in the United States, but the roads were not that. I wouldn't classify them as that great.
Well, they sure as the hell ain't now either.
Well, that's beside the point. The other thing too is you have to wonder, and at this time, rubber bullets were the thing for most of these protesters. When you didn't take live ammunition to most of these protests, but the Ohio National Guard did, and that's why there ended up one of the reasons that it ended up 4 kids had died in those shootings, and they probably, in a lot of aspect, was probably in the wrong place at the wrong time.
More than likely.
And when they were killed, my whole thing here was, why in the hell would you even allow live ammunition at a protest like that? That's no reason for that. That's just saying, I'm going to kill you if you throw a rock at me. Now, mind you, I was on the side of the rock throwers because this was a protest, and the protest, if it got violent, it had to get violent. But is that in that same aspect? Because it got violent, does that give the National Guard the right to shoot somebody and kill them? 4 people? I don't think so.
First off, it never should have gotten violent in the first place. And I will, kind of like what you saw at Columbia, I think this should have been, now, the local police probably would have needed help from other cities to accomplish this with the amount of people that were, creating the issue. But yeah, that should have been, at least at first, a police matter, and they should have dealt with it. The only reason I'm saying this, and once again, I have to kind of trust things that I've seen and hope they're accurate. Now, we've all seen the movie Rambo. Okay. The very first one, First Blood.
Yeah.
You remember he goes up into the mountains and they call in the National Guard, and the National Guard's going after him. Well, you got these guys, a bunch of fat panty waist goofballs, talking about, come on, man, what are we doing? Man, I got to get back to the store. And they're, hey, check this out. I finally get to shoot this thing. And, they shoot the bazooka into the mountain and all that stuff. But what this kind of shows is, at least back then, your National Guard, they weren't exactly what you would call your trained military men.
That was not a very that was not a very decent depiction of 1970 National Guard. Not even close. I've seen, they were like any other military regiment. They knew that they were given assignments, and in this case, they were trying to move the students into a different area and make them disperse. And there was megaphones on that land, and they were saying disperse, 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 and all that. And the National Guard had those protective shields to try to make them move like that. They were a military regiment. They weren't your typical, the National Guard, as far as it's always been, the National Guard is the first one to go in and pretty much the last one to come out normally. When you're going to do a military exercise, they're the first ones in, and then they are trained really well. A lot of those.
Well, see, that's like I was trying to make the comparison, because when I look at how all of this ended and the letter that came from the National Guard and whatnot, I could see, after watching Rambo, how those guys could have been scared shitless, and then on top of it, not really having that discipline and that training that you would think that they have, and something very unfortunate occurring. But you're telling me that, okay, so Rambo, that's some bullshit. You had actually, good trained people, because I just figured back then, weekend warriors were exactly that. They thought it was cool and fun, and they were just having a good time, making a couple extra bucks, and then all of a sudden they got shoved into a situation and lost their balls.
Most of the time the National Guard was actually retired or at that point working for an education people. They were some of them were school people, some of them were retired out of the they were retired out of the military. So that, I would not. So, but like I said, that I think the point I'm trying to make is, why in the hell did they allow the governor knew that they had live ammo, and why did they have that?
Well, it even shows, at least in the articles that I was reading, that at one point the quote unquote general of that National Guard told him to lock and load. He made the call, not the university. The university made the call to bring the National Guard there.
Yeah.
And then what occurred after that, that was all on them. And he said lock and load, and they got, back up the hill. And
there was
you see different kinds of, one story I see that, they just went to the top of the hill, turned around and started shooting. And then other ones kind of candy coated a little bit more. But at the end of the day, it's still the same thing. For whatever reason, they started shooting, and the individuals that got shot weren't necessarily agitators that were doing horrible things, because it doesn't sound like anybody was aiming. They just shot into a crowd.
Yeah, that's exactly what they did.
Where the hell they landed.
That's exactly what they did. So there was a quote from Crosby, Stills and Nash, or Nash and Young, I think, at that time, that kind of sort of tells you the thinking. And everybody's listened to this song at Four Dead in Ohio. The first line of it goes, 10 soldiers and Nixon coming. We are finally on our own. This summer I heard the drumming, Four Dead in Ohio. That kind of sets the temperament of what was going on. You can get a lot out of that first sentence of that song. You had what the students were thinking of was that the National Guard was 10 soldiers. And of course, they were all backed up by Nixon wanting to escalate the war. And the whole war thing actually came down to one big ass loss for the U.S. And it was the protesting that probably helped it that way.
In which what you just said is, I think, part of the issue. Nixon ran, and from what I'm, once again, like I said, what I'm reading, I wasn't there, was that his big selling point for the presidency was stopping the war. And
they all said that. They all said that.
I imagine it's
Save me one.
But what happened is, when he basically almost secretly, and it kind of got out, that they went into Cambodia. That's what started the protest, was when the United States went into Cambodia. That was when they were pretty much fighting over the Ho Chi Minh Trail.
Yeah.
So that's what they tell me. So they all got pissed off at Nixon because, basically, kind of like what you've seen many times before, went back on our campaign promises and didn't deliver what we said we were going to do. And now you have these types of demonstrations all over the country, and, Kent State becomes worldwide news.
some of that stuff, even as they're trying to apply it to today, it just doesn't make the wash. You know, I think if nothing else, the American government learned quite a bit from that protest and that era of time. They had they learned that you don't just go into something like that with live ammo. And they should have known better to begin. When it all comes down to it, and go ahead. I'm watching my wife make egg salad. That's enough.
She does that shit right.
Yeah, I gotta make sure.
The chef has got to watch the sous chef. Make sure they don't fuck nothing up.
Yeah, that's the way it is here too. But what it all came down to is that there was lessons out of that war. There's still people that grieves that war every day because of lost loved ones and everything like that. And it's sad to say, it's sad to hear. But, you're getting to the point now where you've got most of your World War II vets are gone. In fact, probably 85, 90% of them, I would think. And then the other, the Vietnam people are starting to slowly fade off too. It's just that war, and that was a large part of my growing up. I was afraid I was going to get stuck going over there too, and I wanted nothing to do with that thing. And
nobody does. I mean, for the most part, but
fortunately, it all got taken care of because I got classified as 1H and never left it.
What the hell is 1H?
One unclassified. That's the what do you call it? Draft board classification. 1H, a little bit more.
Oh, they just didn't call your group.
Yeah, I know they never called the group, right?
Okay,
never had
I thought
to.
Maybe it had something to do with a medical issue or whatever, and that meant you couldn't serve.
No, I was mental, all right, but that's just.
Well, yeah, we know that. I mean, some shit don't change,
and it never will. I gotta check timing here, so take a quick gander at everything. Gotta make sure we're still on the air, which looks like we are. I see myself turning around everything. All right. Well, what else are we gonna argue about? Did you see my shirt? Did you see my shirt? It says,
"Keep calm,
keep calm, and hate the Steelers." And I wore it. My wife says, "Are you going to wear that shirt on the show today?" I said, "Why not?" She says, I said, "Why not?" So, Dale, here you go. I wore this for you.
Uh-oh. Justine's blasting me.
Oh? About the shirt?
No. Hasn't started yet. I'm trying to find it.
Yeah. Tell her to go to Rumble. It's on Rumble, as far as I know. All right. Or Twitter. Yeah, Rumble is rumbling. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. Or we're not on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We're on FC2.
That's why she ain't finding it. That's how she does it. She goes on to Facebook.
Tell her she can go to Rumble or YouTube. We're on both of those right now. Streaming on YouTube. But yeah, it's been a yeah, that's right. Poof. I've had several thoughts about that since we decided to discuss that. And I want to look at something else while I'm thinking about it. I think we're at 36 minutes. Okay. We got a little ways yet. What else are we going to argue about?
The price of tea in China?
Not really. I don't really care about that.
Well, actually, okay. Because it actually seemed to be a good argument and a good discussion. I think, we need to take the, May 4th Kent State thing and move that into today's times and what is being highly publicized at Columbia University and also going on all around the country. Hell, they got an encampment going on up at Cleveland State right now. And
all right, now that you brought that up, there is something that's griping my ass about that. Are you ready for this?
Hit me.
You want to talk about this is not really kind of election politics, but it's a thing that just sprinkle. No, a little more than that. A little more. Hang on a second, I got to do something. There, that'll do it. Anyway,
that's what she said.
I heard last night that there was I got to figure out which two buttons I got to kill here. One of these colleges, I think it was the one up in towards Cleveland there, has put the students on notice that they if they don't disperse, they have so much time, and then it's time to go home. The university's not supporting them anymore. Now, there's two or three things that really bother me about this. What that college is saying is, you don't have the right to protest. We're not going to support you. You don't have the right to protest on our property. You can go protest somewhere else, but not here.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
And now all of a sudden, wait a minute. You being one for your First Amendment rights, that student, it don't matter where it is, should be able to protest wherever they want to.
Okay.
And if not,
so I can start raising hell at work. Listen, yeah. I'm on private property. I'm on their property. If you want to do your protest, you need to go down to the town hall, the city hall, wherever, where it's a public place.
Well, those are public. Private colleges are public places.
No, they ain't.
They are.
That's private property.
Their own. And some of them are even owned by the damn government.
That university
and pay.
You have to do this, this, and this, and you have to do it. Once again, let's go back to our terms of service agreement.
You
sign the dotted line. You say, "Okay, I won't do these things," and then you go do them. Guess what? You get.
I'd put money on it that you didn't sign anything for that. I never signed anything about protesting in school when I went to college. And I didn't go that long ago. I was 10, 15 years ago.
Well, was it individual paper about protesting? It was probably all in your agreement to.
No. That's not. I never saw anything like that.
I
would have raised hell about it.
One thing that Kent State has done is because of the bad things that happened that day, now everything that's going on now is candy coated, and we're afraid to deal with the bad people because we don't want to look like Kent State. So now we just let them be kids. When, prime example, I watched the thing last night. You saw when the NYPD went through the windows into that building that, I will add, was illegally occupied by these individuals. But when they got in there and they made all the arrests that they made, it was approximately, I don't remember if it was 50 or 80%, and I know it's a big jump, but I want to say 80% of the individuals that had taken over that building weren't even students at the university. So now that shows where the bad apple crowd starts to come in and stirring the pot. And the people down in the encampment, they're doing their thing. They're protesting. They're being cool. And then you have these other assholes that are trying to make a name for themselves by, burning down an ROTC building or occupying another building on campus to prove their point. Once again, you're breaking the law.
Now, I got to say I agree with some of that. Not all of it, but some. Let's change the dynamic a little bit here. You talked about these protesters that were going in and taking over buildings and what have you. All right, I agree that that's some of that stuff shouldn't happen. They ought to be able to come in and take them out, arrest them, go fine them a couple of $100, and then throw them back out again. Because you're never going to, when you got that many people, you're never going to get all of them into a jail anyway.
Really?
Because the jails
Did you not
overcrowded.
see the news on January 6th? There are still people sitting in jail that still haven't been charged and haven't been allowed to have proper due process. That's what we do nowadays. It just, we pick and choose our moments on when we want to do something like that.
We'll come back to the January 6th thing in a second.
That's
point.
A whole show.
My point. Let's switch this around. Well, we can do a show on that if you want.
I was going to say that's a whole
But
show.
the whole thing of it is, anybody listening, I made the mistake a couple of weeks ago of letting some of this stuff slide, and it ended up taking and going into other shows on this network. I will not allow any of it to happen again. If you want to discuss this amongst yourselves, go right ahead. But if this network does not, in fact, I'm working on a disclaimer for this.
Part of the disclaimer?
This network is not responsible for anything that any of these guests on this show, any hosts or guests on this show, we're not responsible for their opinions. That's it. And if you want to take and start arguing with me about it, I'll just leave. I don't care. I'm not here to argue. I'm here to have a good time. I'm here to have
But you just, hold on. I have to stop your disclaimer. Did you catch what you just said?
Actually,
you're on a podcast called The Art of Argument.
Well,
and I'm not here to argue.
I'm not.
I thought that's what we were doing.
With this show as an exception, Dale. You know that. This show is an exception. I love to argue with you. I'm not going to argue with anybody else. If you bring up topics that are on this show to me, outside of this show, I won't talk about them. I'm done with that crap. I got so sick of it, I shut a certain other podcasts clear off. I turned the Zoom off because I didn't want to hear it, and I don't. I was in a bad mood, and we won't even go there. But anyway, I digress.
I ain't here to argue.
Well, I'm here to argue with you. Nobody else but you.
I look forward to this shit. To raise some hell for a couple minutes.
Let's take it. I want to go back to the topic of what we were just on, though, as far as the protesters. Let's say, and I know some of this is happening because it just is. What about the topic of paid protesters? Somebody that's protesting and raising hell just to because they're being paid to do so.
In lies probably most of what I've been talking about. You have these kids on campus that have an issue that for whatever reason, because they're college age, they're doing what they're doing, and then you get these paid protesters to come in and hell, like I'll even use the example of January 6th just for that. Some of those people that were there, they could have cared less about the Republican quote unquote point of view. They were there to stir the pot, and then of course you have radicals there that may have been on the Republican side that they gather in, but you have these pot stirrers that are there just to cause problems. They're like, hey, do whatever you want. We'll bail you out of jail.
We'll pay you $30. We'll pay you $30 an hour just to get down there and run around.
Yeah, we're taking peaceful protests and turning them into riot. I have probably no doubt in my mind that when the stuff at Columbia University started, it was some we'll just say good-minded people that were protesting because they truly believe this on this side and this on this side. So you had protesters and counter protesters, but they believed what they believed, and they were down there to shout out what they felt. And they might call the guy across the lawn an MFer or whatever, but it was peaceful. It was just a couple of groups of people going back and forth, arguing about now a group of people trying to manipulate a university to do something they want them to do. Okay, that's a protest. But what they're trying to do is tell them, we're going to tell you what you have to do with your money and what you're going to do. Now, in the midst of all this, you get the people that you're talking about come down in there, start stirring the pot, causing a ruckus, throwing rocks, throwing bottles, throwing whatever. And the people that actually started to demonstrate are sitting there watching this, but because they think it's cool, they're allowing it to happen. And now they're wondering why the NYPD is coming through windows to take people out of a building. It's because most of the people there have nothing to do with what's going on. And they aren't protesting to save Palestine or to save Israel or to do anything. They're down there protesting because they just want to be assholes and cause a problem. And you know what? Grab them and lock them the fuck up. And then let the peaceful protesters sit down there and protest and speak their mind and do what they're doing. But these other jackasses, fucking deal with them.
Well, the whole thing with the paid protesters is, I don't know when this stuff started. It didn't start in the 70s. You had different factions back in the 70s, both black and white, that were protesting against the war. That was a common goal. And, you had a goal, you had a protest, you took and you had the idea of what you want. Nowadays, hell, I've been following this supposed or this Palestine and Gaza thing since it started, and I have yet to see any. I don't get why this protest is going on. The U.S. doesn't really have anything. Well, they do because they're supporting it. But on the other hand,
I'll give Biden a little bit of credit.
It's not us
that's supporting it to a certain extent.
It's not us that's in control of it. So why in the hell do we have to have these protests over here? Well, go over to Gaza and protest. Get your
Amen, brother.
Get your damn head blowed off.
Damn it, we just agreed again.
Oh,
exactly. Take your
Christ, we're in trouble now.
Go over to Israel or Gaza Strip, and you want to protest, go over there and protest, and then you can actually see why this group is doing what they're doing and what this group is doing what they're doing, because what's happening here, the innocent Palestinians. Well, it's the innocent Palestinians that was hanging out with Hamas that launched all these bombs. And then why did they do it? Well, probably at some point, Israel took over something and they were launching bombs. So you got two bad guys. Well, not necessarily bad guys, but you got two individuals fighting each other. Both of them got reasons to be fighting each other. And we have these punk kids in the college that are picking a side because they feel that's the cool thing to do when they have no idea about the fight, where it started, or what it, like me sitting here, I say the same thing you do. I don't know why they're doing this. I guess you got to go back in history and look at shit, but both of them, I have to imagine, have probably done wrong through history. Both of them have probably done wrong against the other, and they're fighting. But go over there and protest.
I agree with you, and I know
you want to protest your university and what they're doing.
The ratings of this show just
who cares? Shit. That has nothing to do with the people that are dying over in Israel.
Yep.
Has nothing to do with it. You want to protest and you want to make a difference, take your ass over to Israel and find out what is actually happening and base your opinion and then pick the side that you want to be on. Yep. But when I watch videos, and I wanted to put this video on here today, but I didn't know how to do it, and I unfortunately couldn't find it last night. I watched a guy interviewing two young ladies that came from another university down to Columbia University, and the guy's asking them questions about, what is your problem? What are you protesting? What is the issue? And the one girl, she's like, I really don't know. I wish we had more information. And she looks at her girlfriend and she goes, why did we come down here? Why are we here? I know it was something that the university was doing that the students didn't agree with. And we just thought we would come down here and lend our support to them. What the fuck are you lending support for? You're in the middle of a protest, being an asshole, maybe throwing rocks, maybe throwing bottles, but I don't think these young ladies were. But you're in the middle of this and you don't know why.
Well, that's the difference between the 1970 thing and what's going on now, Dale. You haven't got a fucking clue. And excuse my French, and this show is R-rated.
It's an adult show. Let it roll.
You just don't. They ain't got a clue here. They just don't. They don't know what they're protesting about. Back then, you had the Vietnam War. you had a bullshit war that nobody wanted to go to because they were afraid they'd get shot and die and get maimed and everything else. That was a terrible ass war over there.
I agree.
Nobody really knows, unless you've been over there, how bad it was. All that, there was so many trenches and dug in places that the Kong were. Everything was growed over bush and trees and crap. You couldn't see 2 feet in front of you. And, nobody wanted to go over there. And I don't blame them. I wouldn't want it either. But, at least you had a point there. You actually had something that you wanted to argue or you wanted to take and protest about. And I was, I was in the end of that generation that was over there, and I didn't want to go. I couldn't see myself going over there. I really couldn't. And especially when you start thinking about what's probably over there and what America was trying to accomplish, which was BS. They were over there to try to save democracy. Oh yeah, let's save democracy over there. There's no oil, there's no rubber tree plants for rubber or any kind of resources like that. Hell, their national export was flipping grain and rice. And why in the hell even be there? But you did have a point.
Vietnam was a whole argument over communism. They were trying to stop the communist side.
You did have a point. You did have a point though. And
that was a whole,
we got beat miserably over that. Back then. You got beat miserably over that because you had to pull out. I remember watching. Well, we ended up the Kennedy years
was with Vietnam, and to this day, because my uncle went to Vietnam. He was in the Air Force Special Forces, got thrown in to a group of Green Berets, and kind of thrown out in the middle of the bush, handling his business. And of course, when he came home, the man wasn't right. But one of the major things he told me, before that, Vietnam was not a war, technically speaking.
Yes,
they call it the Vietnam War to this day.
That's exactly
right. Vietnam War was nothing more than a quote-unquote police action.
Yep,
and agree. My uncle always told me, he said, Dale, he said, we had more planes and more bombs over there. We had enough. We could have flat out annihilated, the opposition in a New York minute, but they wouldn't let us do it.
The world
we had everything we needed right there to end that war at any time we wanted to, but they wouldn't let us. Instead, they just threw us out there playing around in the fields and getting shot up.
The rest of the world wouldn't let us do that. That's exactly right. But if we would have had the approval of the world, like we did for the Iraqi thing, hell, we would have taken. They would have taken that damn country and nothing flat. I know that.
Well, okay, let's contrast that. Okay, so we had all this back during the Iraq War. Twin Towers went down. Boom, let's go over. United States is united, and we go deal with the problem. Now, I know there's some other things in here in between that probably I don't know about, but now Israel's sitting there, all these missiles and all this crap comes flying over, thousands of people get killed, and now all of a sudden we're being told that Israel shouldn't be allowed to defend themselves and deal with the people that caused this problem. Nobody gave us any shit when we went over to deal with the problem we dealt with. But now all of a sudden, this has become a major issue. Why? I don't know, because I don't
because the rest of the world's not supporting it.
Middle East politics.
Because the rest of the world's not supporting it.
Because I'm there's good people on both sides. Don't get me wrong. I mean, let me give my disclaimer. I'm not saying the Palestinian people are bad or they're wrong, and I'm not saying the Israeli people are bad or wrong. I'm just saying, you just threw a bunch of bombs at us. What do you want me to do? Just sit here and take it? I'm going to come over here and I'm going to take care of the people that caused this problem in my country. Now, the problem arises where all these people are getting displaced and told, hey, we're coming. You need to get out of town and go someplace else. That's not necessarily cool, but I guess almost a necessary evil. But if you stand outside my house throwing rocks through my windows, I'm going to come to your house and I'm going to throw rocks through your windows. Okay? I mean, tit for tat. I mean, it's, I don't agree with it. I don't want anybody to be fighting. But you have to understand both sides.
That's exactly right. And I think we've probably about shot the hour. I'm going to look here. Yeah, we have by about 3 minutes. Why don't we go ahead and wrap this? Thanks everybody for watching today. I hope you had a good time watching us argue. Well, we'll be back in 2 weeks. I'm not sure what the date of that is. Do you know right offhand?
Give me half a second. The 19th.
Yeah, we'll be back the 19th to argue some more. We'll have some different topics, and it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun doing this, Mr. Dale.
Please enjoy this feature presentation of the Crooked River Radio Network. This program may contain adult content and is intended for mature audiences only.
Audio, hello. All right. Let's go ahead and wrap things up here. We will see everybody next week.
Well, not next week.
Or in 2 weeks.
Got again.